Millionaire insults girl, play or I'll adopt you, until her music shocks him forever. On a rainy afternoon in downtown Chicago, the thunder rolled in sync with the tumult of hearts in a packed coffee shop. Tension crackled in the air as whispers swirled. This wasn't just your ordinary caffeine-fueled crowd. In the corner, under dim lights, sat Amelia, a girl with wild hair and fire in her voice. She cradled her guitar like a warrior holding her shield, ready to face a battle. And across the room, clad in designer threads, was the infamous millionaire, Logan Crest, a man who thought his wealth made him an emperor. Play, he sneered, arrogance dripping from his voice, or I'll adopt you. Gasps echoed as eyes darted between them. Logan's words felt like a freight train, heavy and unforgiving. What happened next sent shockwaves through the entire room. Amelia glanced up, her eyes narrow as if a storm brewed within. She didn't reply with a flinch or a sneer, but with a haunting strum of her guitar. When she began to sing, the noise of the bustling cafe faded, replaced by her bittersweet melody. It wrapped around everyone like a thick fog, pulling them deeper into an emotional labyrinth. The notes danced sharp and sweet, as if they were pulling at heartstrings long left untouched, but here's the kicker, the song was eerie, almost like she was reading Logan's soul. She sang about the burdens of gold, the hollow laughter in empty rooms, and the emptiness that came with powerful shadows. It was as if she had dived into his heart and laid bare all his painful secrets. The eyes of the crowd, which had flared with disbelief, now widened with intrigue. Muffled or rippled through the coffee shop, people leaned in, unable to look away. Just then, the low hum of the cafe plunged into an unsettling silence as Amelia's fingers danced over the strings with raw intensity. A nearby group of baristas froze, eyes wide, as Amelia's voice pierced the stillness, her vulnerability bleeding through every note. Logan shifted in his seat, a frown growing on his face was that recognition he felt. In that moment, everyone in the room could sense it, the awkward tension, the rising stakes, and the fall of his imposing facade. What revelation would come next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the last note hung in the air, something shifted. Logan was no longer just an onlooker, the flicker of intrigue turned into doubt, rapidly morphing into something more complex. His smirk faded, replaced by a look of sheer astonishment. And just like that, the hungry whispers swelled again, feeding upon the mystique of the moment, as the crowd clutched their coffees and watched. What was it about Amelia's voice? Was it magic? Or was it more like a spell, silently entwining their fates in the most unexpected ways? One thing was for sure, this was a music battle like no other, and neither of them would walk away unscathed. What would Amelia do next, leaving the audience breathless and Logan changed forever? Amelia's haunting melody lingered like smoke in the wake of an explosion, gripping the hearts of everyone in the room. She felt empowered, but at the same time, a part of her trembled. The weight of Logan's gaze bore down on her. She had struck a very different chord in him, a challenging note in a testament of strength and vulnerability. The coffee shop buzzed, their murmurs oscillating between reverence and shock. Logan, who had once exuded cocky confidence, appeared disarmed, his blue eyes clouded with confusion. But soon, a flicker of something darker sparked within him. How could a girl with so few resources uncover the depths of his soul? He leaned forward, elbows planted on the table, the designer suit seeming to constrict around him as if tightening like the noose of expectation. Nice act, he finally said, although the venom had lost its bite. Think that will impress anyone? Yet, in his voice, there was an edge of uncertainty. Amelia suppressed a breath, the tension in her muscles betraying her composed facade. She tightened her grip on the guitar, feeling each string vibrate with the potential of new life, new battles to be fought. "It's not an act," she managed, her voice steady but strained. "It's the truth." At that moment, for the first time, Logan felt an uncomfortable sense of shame welling up inside him. The surrounding crowd was transfixed, judging not just the performer, but also the man who had orchestrated this bizarre encounter. Whispers turned into gasps, eyes darting between Logan and Amelia like a tennis match. He could almost hear their thoughts. What kind of millionaire taunted a girl with a gift? The stillness shattered as the barista dropped a tray, cups clattering to the floor. The sound jolted Logan from his reverie, shoving him back into the reality where he was a powerful man used to getting what he wanted. But something had changed. The laughter he protected himself with felt hollow in the aftermath of Amelia's song, and the shadows of his empire suddenly crept closer, threatening to engulf him. Suddenly, Amelia's voice rang out again, but this time it wasn't another song. It was a question, simple and penetrating. "What are you afraid of, Logan?" The room went silent. It felt like a spotlight had swung in on his darkest insecurities. Logan gulped, fingers clenched around his glass. It was maddening to be stripped bare in front of so many eyes. "I'm not afraid of anything," he lied, but even he could hear the tremor in his voice. "Then why don't you admit it?" she challenged, taking a step closer. "Your money can't buy you happiness, Logan. If it did, you wouldn't be here taunting a girl just to feel important." He flinched, as if struck. The patrons of the cafe leaned in, eager to hear his response, the tension drumming in the air like a war cry. Would he lash out and reclaim his lost power? Or was there something more fragile emerging in the depths of his crisp exterior? Logan opened his mouth, but the words felt lodged like stones in his throat. He caught Amelia's gaze, and for a split second, something unyielding passed between them, a thread of understanding, perhaps even a spark of something unexpected. There, amidst the electric silence, vulnerability was born, and just then, a loud crash echoed from the street outside, pulling everyone from their reverie. A delivery truck had spun wildly, nearly colliding with the coffee shop's entrance. Heart rate spiked. Would chaos sweep them away, or could it unravel the tumult that had just begun? Amelia stepped back, breath escaping her lungs. She could feel the shifting tides of fate pressing upon her. What lay ahead after this unfolding drama? As the clouds rolled in thick overhead and sirens blared in the distance, Amelia found herself nervously wondering, was this just the beginning of her true fight for survival? The tension in the coffee shop shattered like glass. Patrons turned towards the window, their faces morphing from surprise to fear. Mason, a frequent customer, leapt from his seat, his chair crashing to the floor behind him. "Is anyone hurt?" he yelled, his voice rising above the drone of confusion. The deafening roar of sirens clawed through the air, and Amelia could feel the ground beneath her shift as if the very world around her was trembling. Logan, still seated, breathed heavily, his jaw tightening. For a moment, the chaos outside eclipsed everything. It was as if they had both stepped into someone else's life, one filled with drama and danger, pulling them further away from the confines of their expectations. Logan's eyes darted toward the doorway, struggling to break from the spell Amelia cast over him. "What are you waiting for? Call an ambulance!" he shouted at the barista, his voice shattering the moment. Amelia stood frozen, guitar limp in her hands. The raw emotion of her performance still hung in the air like a faint echo, but the reality of the situation sliced through it. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a random accident. Something cosmic had shifted, entwining their fates in a way she couldn't comprehend. Outside, the truck driver climbed from his vehicle, panic written all over his face. "I'm okay. I lost control," he shouted, raising his hands as if to reassure the growing crowd. But not everyone was convinced. A woman nearby began to sob, pointing toward the ground. "Someone south in the street. Call for help. Please." The urgency in her voice jolted Amelia. Without thinking, she reached for her phone, heart racing. Before she could press the buttons, Logan's hand shot out, grasping her wrist. Stay here. His tone was more commanding than she had ever heard from him. Don't go out there. People need help. She fired back, shaking him off. Fear surged through her, mingling with the defiance of her earlier performance. Perhaps the music hadn't just come from a place of pain, it had birthed newfound courage within her. Logan's expression softened, desperation flickering beneath his bravado. You might be putting yourself in danger, he pleaded, but it only fueled her fire. She glanced around the shop, the faces of people anxiously awaiting a decision, a leader, a hero. In that moment, she realized it wasn't just musicians who could be powerful, it could be anyone daring enough to step forward when it mattered most. Emboldened, Amelia pushed past Logan, her heart pounding with every step towards the door. Outside, the chaos roared even louder, but she could already sense a shift. The collective fear could either simmer into panic or gather strength to support one another. As she stepped out, the cold wind enveloped her, a stark contrast to the warmth inside. Her eyes searched frantically for the source of distress and landed on a young girl, crying as she crouched beside a man sprawled on the asphalt, blood pooling beneath him. Help! Someone help! The little girl's voice broke Amelia's heart. The ensuing chaos fused into a single thought: Amelia could no longer sit idle. But before she could assess the situation, another crash rang out from the alley next door, a sound so sharp it felt like a knife to her consciousness. It was then that Logan barreled out behind her, eyes wide in disbelief. Stay back! He shouted, the billionaire shedding his corporate mask once again, but Amelia turned to him fiercely. You have to stop acting like the only thing that matters is yourself. This is bigger than us. The sincerity of her plea lingered in the air as she knelt beside the injured man, her hands trembling but resolute. In that moment, Amelia knew she had to fight, not just for herself but for everyone who had ever felt overlooked. The cost of courage was heavy, but she was ready to carry it if it meant saving a life, and amidst their combined turmoil, she found herself wondering, could Logan finally realize the weight of his own decisions? Would he be willing to confront the man he had allowed himself to become? What are we waiting for? Logan asked, and for the first time, his voice was pure. What Amelia didn't know was that with each choice they made, the boundaries between their worlds were crumbling. And in the swirling storm, something darker was watching, ready to strike. Would they be prepared for it? The air felt electric as Amelia knelt beside the injured man, the stark reality washing over her like icy water. She could hear the distant wail of sirens approaching, but they seemed to crawl with time, just like the shadows creeping into the edges of her mind. Stay with me, please. She urged, her hands hovering over the man's face, searching for signs of life, something, anything to cling to. Blood pooled steadily beneath him, stark contrast against the cracked asphalt, and she squeezed her eyes shut for a heartbeat, willing the world to slow down, even just a little. Behind her, Logan hovered uncertainly, fear wrestling with a newfound resolve that she had hardly expected to see. He took a breath, then another, inching closer to them. We need to apply pressure, he finally managed, the command flickering in his voice. The tones of a corporate leader shifted into something gentler, harder, as if he were learning to navigate through the debris of uncertainty. Amelia nodded, her heart echoing his urgency. Right. Help me, give me your jacket. She reached toward him, urgency in her tone, every passing second stinging like a whip across her consciousness. Logan complied, his tailored suit jacket shedding his shoulders as he handed it over, his hands shaking as they brushed against hers. She pressed it against the man's wound, feeling warmth seeping into the fabric in her fingers, ever so slightly. Amelia glanced up at Logan. You have to keep him talking to stay awake. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that, he murmured, beginning to speak into the stranger's face, but the words felt hollow, just sounds in the chaos. The little girl's cries pierced through like daggers, pulling Amelia's focus. Look, I'm going to need you to tell me your name. Logan's voice was shaky, forcing conciseness amidst the muffled overtones of panic. You're going to be okay. Just hold on. The injured man let out a fractured groan, and it felt like a thunderclap in Amelia's ears. It hurts, he gasped, the lethargy in his voice deepening her panic. My leg. She bit her lip hard, a well of emotion threatening to spill over. She could barely breathe, sensing the sharpness of urgency blending with fear. There was only so much she could do. Did she have the power to change that tide? Suddenly, the distant sounds grew louder, not only the sirens but the unmistakable sound of footsteps rushing towards them. With a glimmer of hope, she glanced back, but what she saw sent a fresh chill down her spine. The crowd had taken a step closer, but their faces were not masks of concern. No, they looked tight with tension, eyes darting towards the alley where that last crash had come from. "Logan," she gasped, eyes widening. "Something's wrong. We need to move. Now." He turned, and for a fleeting second, their eyes met, the weight of the moment crackling in the air between them. A shift had happened. They were no longer just two people caught in life's roles. They were now woven together in this thread of crisis. As if picked up by an unseen force, they helped the man onto the jacket, hoping to lift him, but then another crash erupted behind them, forcing them to drop their burden. Logan spun around, blocking Amelia instinctively. "Get behind me." The chaos outside morphed into an unexpected crescendo. People were screaming now, and confusion reigned supreme. Something dark was lurking in the alley, something menacing that held more than just the weight of an accident. It roared, and then silence. Amelia pulled back her like a coiled spring, adrenaline surging through her veins. "We can't just leave him. He might be hurt more." "Amelia, listen to me." Logan's voice cut through her resolve, an edge of authority creeping back in. "You could get hurt, and if I do nothing." Her voice echoed back at him, laced with the rawness of determination. "All of this has to mean something." She didn't expect the words to come out like that, or for the fear lurking in her veins to morph into a fountain of courage. And yet here they stood, two souls ready to confront whatever monster awaited them, but behind the wall of silence, the tension crackled, and Amelia felt the darkness swirl, a shadow creeping ever closer, waiting for an opportunity to strike. "Who's there?" Logan called out into the ominous quiet, only to receive nothing but the haunting whispers of the chaotic night. As he stood tense, something in Amelia's gut twisted. They had ventured too far, and the burden of choices pressed cruelly upon them. She needed to choose fight or flight, and the weight felt like an anchor, but what would they face next? Were they truly ready to confront whatever watched from the shadows? The answer loomed uncertainly in the air as doubt hung heavy, waiting to descend. The air was thick with tension, each heavy breath mixing with the metallic scent of blood and fear. Amelia's heart raced as she gripped the jacket against the man's wound, chewing on her lower lip to stave off the rising panic. Every fiber of her being screamed for them to flee, yet she couldn't abandon him. "We need to get him to safety," she shouted, desperation weaving into her words. Logan took a step forward, hands clenched into fists. "We can't go that way," he said, nodding toward the growing shadows skirting the alley. "There could be danger. We don't know what that noise was." The crowd around them had transformed into a torrent of fear-driven whispers, ominous murmuring weaving through the air like dark smoke. People jostled, pushing unsteadily backward as they caught glimpses of the menace lurking just beyond the light. Yet, an eerie calm settled over Amelia. She felt time stretching, each second crawling as if taunting her resolve. From behind Logan, a figure emerged, a man, tall and gaunt, with a tattered coat swirling around him like an aura of darkness. His eyes glinted like razor blades, scanning the crowd with a predatory focus. It was a gaze that pierced through to the marrow, demanding attention and obedience, and Amelia felt her breath hitch. "What do you want?" Logan called out with a feigned bravado. The man's expression twisted into a ghost of a smile. "Just seeing what fun is happening in my neighborhood," he sneered, taking a leisurely step toward them. Amelia's pulse quickened, sensing danger, every instinct screaming to retreat. "We're helping him." She shot back, her voice sharper than intended, but it held a plea, a wish to ward off what loomed. "Him?" The man crooned, his tone dripping with mockery. "Looks like he's in quite a bind, don't you think? You gonna play the hero?" "Enough. Logan growled, stepping forward protectively, shielding Amelia with his body. You can't do this. We need help. The man chuckled a dark, menacing sound. Oh, but I can. You see, it's a game now, isn't it? He leaned closer, and Amelia felt the chill run down her spine. Play by my rules, and maybe I'll let you keep your little friend. Panic surged in Amelia. This wasn't just about the injured man anymore. The shadows were now intertwining with their fate, and the stakes had escalated far beyond what she could comprehend. She spaced a breath, eyeing Logan, whose expression shifted from anger to realization. They were caught in a snare. Why don't you show me what you've got? The man dared, raising an eyebrow, as if relishing the chaos he was unleashing. No. Amelia shouted, grounding herself in the moment. We don't need to play your sick game. Will Amelia, wait. Logan replied, a flicker of urgency crossing his face. What if he has something to do with the accident? What if? But before he could finish, the man lifted an arm, and the crowd at once silenced. It was as if he possessed power over them, every gaze locked, breath held in shared horror. Here's the deal, he said, tilting his head slightly. A little performance, perhaps. Something light-hearted, to ease the tension in the air. If you impress me, I may just let you leave. Tension wrapped around Amelia's chest, choking her resolve. She could feel the weight of judgment weighing heavily in the gathering crowd, who now awaited her response like vultures waiting for a meal. Why should we entertain you? She shot back, heart thumping defiantly. Because, he drawled, if I don't like what I see, well, things could get messy. Amelia glanced at the injured man, then at Logan. She felt the stakes shifting again, the burden doubling as their eyes locked with a shared, silent desperation. We can't let him win, she thought. What do you want me to do? She called out, anger bubbling beneath the surface. A chilling smile crossed the man's lips. I want you to sing. Something haunting, something I can remember. The crowd around her pulsed with anticipation, and for the briefest moment, the air shifted, hope and fear tangled together. Amelia swallowed hard. She had faced demons before, but none like this. A knot twisted tighter in her gut. What melody could silence the darkness? As she opened her mouth, the first note trembled on her lips, echoing into the void. What would this song awaken? And would it be enough to conquer the shadow stalking just beyond the light? The answer hung in the air, looming dangerously, as her voice soared into the uncertainty. The sound burst forth, wavering yet solid, twirling like a delicate flame dancing in the dark. Amelia felt the weight of the crowd pressing down on her, their breath held tight in collective anticipation. Every note wrapped around her, the fear morphing into a driving force, turning her voice into something fierce. She poured her heart into the melody, letting it rise and fall, weaving through the shadows that threatened to engulf them, but the tall man simply stood there, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips while he absorbed the attempt like a judge at a fatal contest. The moment stretched out, Erica's throat tightened further with every second. His expression remained unchanged. Each beat of her heart echoed like a drum, underscoring the risk hinging entirely on his approval. Then, just as self-doubt threatened to eclipse her resolve, she caught a glimpse of Logan, his eyes wide with fear but filled with fierce support. He nodded, urging her silently to continue, and she clenched her hands into fists, summoning everything she had left. Suddenly, the haunting melody shifted. It morphed into something rawer, more primal. Memories of lost moments flooded through her mind, pain, love, and a longing for freedom all coalesced into one powerful song. The shadows recoiled for a moment, and she felt a spark of hope igniting in the hearts of those gathered around them, but the man stepped closer, a shadow looming over her light. A valiant effort, my dear. He called out, his voice a syrupy mockery, but alas, I requested something haunting. I might have to reconsider. What's the point of a game that lacks a little excitement? Anger flared within her. Who did he think he was? Amelia glared up at him, refusing to let fear dictate her choices. This wasn't just a performance anymore, it was a battle, a war of wills. Determined, she launched into a chorus that echoed through the alley like a battle cry, and for a moment, she could see the people around her transforming, their bodies shifting from passive spectators to invested allies. The shadows around them seemed to twist and swirl, pulled by the gravity of her defiance. The crowd began to murmur, their unease slowly morphing into something that felt almost electric. Was it hope? Or was it just the dread simmering beneath the surface, waiting to break free? The man's smile faded, flickering like a candle in a storm. Impressive, he sneered. But impressing me won't save you. You need to do better, or I'll make sure this little show turns into a nightmare. With that, a laugh bubbled up from his throat, cold and callous, cutting through the air like a knife. Amelia's heart sank. The stakes had just risen higher, but her spirit was a raging fire, refusing to flicker out. She had to be stronger, not just for herself, but for the wounded man, for Logan, and for everyone caught in this deadly charade. But what else could she give? Amelia, we need to get out of here. Logan urged, but his voice was swallowed by the mounting tension, the crowd pressing in, drawn deeper into the chaos unfurling before them. She took a deep breath, knowing her next move could seal their fate. The shadows loomed, a menacing theater where each person stood on edge, teetering on the brink of despair. What if I want to play your game? She spat defiantly, challenging the man with a gaze that dared him to retaliate. His sharp grin returned. Then we might just find out just how far you're willing to go together. Those words wrapped around her like chains, dragging her deeper into his web and igniting a rush of adrenaline. Amelia steadied herself, every fiber in her being ignited with courage. She would not let the darkness consume them. The crowd held its breath, waiting for her next move as the chilling shadows gathered nearby, a storm brewing. Would she dare challenge the man, risk the uncertain tide that could either bring liberation or doom? The air grew thick with possibilities, and Amelia felt the reckoning close in. What choice would she make? The air pulsed with anticipation, crackling like a live wire as Amelia's defiance hung between her and the man. She could feel every eye on her, each gaze a weight she had to carry. Yet beneath the pressure, her resolve crystallized. They didn't gather here to be spectators to despair, they needed to rise together, to break free from the shadows that had silenced them for so long. As she steadied her breath, a thought bubbled up amid the chaos: maybe it wasn't just about winning this game. Maybe her voice could be the spark that ignited a revolution, no longer just a melody, but a battle hymn for the silenced. All right, she exhaled, the challenge igniting her spirit. If you want haunting, I'll give you haunting. The words felt like a pact forming in the air. The crowd shifted, their breaths hitching at the promise. The man tilted his head, intrigued, his smirk fading to a more sinister grin. Now that's more like it. His arms unfolded, as if he was inviting the darkness to envelop them all. Show me the depths of your soul, then. She stepped forward, into the heart of the shadows. Her heart raced, echoing in her ears like a war drum. With every inhale, she considered the pain it represented, the memories, the scars, the struggles. She was the voice of the tortured, the forgotten. They needed her to transform the anguish into something beautiful and powerful. The note rang out, clear and piercing, ricocheting off the alley walls like a cry for help. The foundation of her song was built upon anguish, brightened by flickers of hope woven through with sharp, haunting melodies that spiraled and tangled like vines. The crowd shifted, becoming restless, caught in the gravity of her rising sound. Now, that is more like it, the man said, amused, but there was something darker lurking behind his praise. The shadows danced hungrily as though they could both swallow her whole or shield her from the looming menace. The crowd gasped, some even clasped their hands to their mouths, enraptured by the rawness she unleashed. Logan stepped closer, his presence a lighthouse amid the storm. Keep going, Amelia. He shouted, his voice filled with unyielding support. It fueled her yet filled her with urgent power. She channeled the collective weight of their fears, their hopes, and their weary hearts, thrusting them all forward into the night, but the man merely watched, his dark eyes narrowing. It's a pretty sound, he said, but the mocking tone returned, but sweet music won't set you free. Will you play to the depths of despair, or will it end in tragedy? You can't hide behind pretty notes. As those words sliced through her melody, she felt an icy chill wash over her. The crowd's murmurs grew uneasy, a storm brewing in their chests. What do you mean? She challenged, the defiance igniting her voice like a flame. You think I don't know despair? You think I'm afraid of it? The power surged within her, a mix of fury and passion she never knew existed. The man chuckled, perhaps a last effort to throw her off balance. Despair, that's where you'll find me, dear girl. Let me remind you, darkness has its own enticing beauty. And in that moment, beneath the tension thick enough to slice through, Amelia had an epiphany. She would face the darkness, but not alone. The voices rising around her weren't hers alone. They were theirs, everyone who had ever suffered, every soul who needed salvation. Then let us see who plays the better game, she replied, her heart throbbing against the walls of her chest. The crowd began to chant softly, their voices intertwining with hers, creating a tapestry of resilience that bolstered her spirit. Suddenly, the shadows flickered as if sensing the shift of power. She felt the crowd swell behind her, urging her on, despite the creeping menace that threatened to crush them underfoot, and that's when it happened. The tall man's expression shifted, something dark and shadowy flickered in his eyes. Something was about to snap, and she could feel it in her bones. Play your best, then. He roared, an unpredictable edge slicing through his voice. The stakes had just escalated, and Amelia knew they had crossed into dangerous territory. Did she dare push further into the abyss, or would the darkness extinguish their light? More than ever, the choices weighed heavily. The clock was ticking down to an explosive end. What if this frightening game was just beginning? The crowd held its breath, a taut line of tension threading between them and the man with the shadow-dark eyes. Amelia sensed the heat of their unyielding support at her back, a warm tide that shook her, urging her to push further into the depths of her song. But the man's sneer twisted her resolve. What did he want from her? What ignited that spark of malice behind his facade? As if sensing her doubt, he took a menacing step forward. You can pretend all you want, but deep down, you know the truth, he hissed, his voice slicing through the melody. Play your heart out, and we'll see just how far down that darkness goes. Amelia's heart raced, pounding like a drum in a heavy storm. She choked on uncertainty but couldn't let it smother her voice. She had come too far. Her muscles twitched under the weight of choice: defy him or give in to despair. She inhaled deeply, focusing on the hearts around her, each one beating with the promise of rebellion. Listen! She shouted, her voice ringing out like a lighthouse beacon. You want despair? It's already here. In that moment, she was no longer just Amelia. She was the embodiment of every dream crushed, every hope suffocated, every soul that had been left behind. She sang not just to spite him, but for everyone who had ever been cast aside. The melody ripped through her like a tempest filled with anguish but streaked with the bright, unapologetic surge of defiance. The shadows writhed and twisted around the man, seeming to recoil from her passionate resonance. He clenched his fists, jaw tight, the mocking grin vanishing into an expression of disbelief. She felt the power shift, her voice had become an unstoppable force, yet, a chill crept into the air, filling her lungs with dread. The noise of the crowd grew louder, the excitement morphing into apprehension. It was no longer about just singing, it was a battle for survival, for their voices to be heard. Each note felt polished, yet raw, a weapon and a shield all at once. Keep going. Logan shouted again, his voice unwavering among the growing chaos. His faith refueled her, pushing her to dive deeper into the depths of the darkness that had threatened her. But she also sensed the room's pulse curl into something darker. Below the surface, a monstrous dread echoed back at her. Are you still with us? The man challenged, his words spinning a web of intimidation around her. Can you feel the weight of despair? Or will you drown in it? Feeling the sting of his taunt, Amelia's resolve sparked anew. She leaped into the next verse, not backing down. I will not drown. I will rise. The crowd roared, their voices soaring beside hers, blending into a furious crescendo that cracked the very air, but then, just as quickly, the atmosphere shifted again, an electric snap, as if the very fibers of reality had frayed. The man's eyes gleamed with something darkly triumphant. "You see, dear girl, despair isn't just a feeling. It's a game of conquer, and you've only scratched the surface. It's time for you to meet my darkness head-on." Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, swirling like a storm unleashed, and Amelia stumbled as if they were physical entities ready to consume her. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath, uncertainty creasing their brows. "Stay with me!" she shouted into the fray, fighting both the shadows and her own fear. But even as she belted out the notes, doubts crept in. Could they really withstand this darkness together? And then, she heard it, a soft murmur echoed through the chaos, a rhythm weaving through the shadows. The crowd's collective heartbeat synchronized with her song, a soft but unwavering promise echoing back to her. An unexpected swell of hope fought against the dark waves. But was it enough? The room spun, caught in conflicting currents. As the darkness surged forward, there was one thing left unspoken that lay thick in the murky atmosphere. Would Amelia's defiance be enough to carry them to the dawn, or would they all be swallowed whole? One question lingered heavy as the shadows loomed. What lay at the edge of this desperate game, and would they survive it? The shadows lunged again, hungry and wild, as Amelia's voice cut through the rising chaos like a knife. She could feel fear nipping at her heels, but she pushed it down, anchoring herself in the powerful rhythm pulsing from the crowd. The air crackled, the tension was almost tangible. "Stay with me," she urged once more, her eyes darting from face to face in the sea of support. She focused on Logan's unwavering gaze, steeling her resolve. They were with her, she could trust them. But that sense of certainty slipped just as the shadows lurched, swirling in a malevolent dance, whispering secrets meant to break her spirit. Suddenly, there was a light, a soft, flickering glow radiating from somewhere beneath the turmoil. Amelia's heart quickened. What was it? Was it hope, or yet another trap set by the man with the dark eyes? The crowd felt it too, a ripple of curiosity passed through them, brightening faces as if the glow was contagious. "You think your light can break me?" the man scoffed. "You underestimate how deep this darkness runs." He took another ominous step forward, fingers outstretched like claws, and the shadows followed suit, curling and leaching toward her. His sneer pierced through the pulsing intensity of her song, a reminder that as fierce as she was still standing at the edge of a precipice. Amelia's breath quickened. The glow began to pulse steadily, resonating with each beat of her heart. It was an ember of light, small but tenacious, illuminating the contours of the dark forming around her. Was it a trick of her mind? The flickering light from that small spark grew larger, cascading through the shadows with each note she sang. The crowd's unwavering response strengthened the glow, a pushback against the consuming gloom. Uncertainty gnawed at her. Could they embrace this spark together? Amelia took a breath, gathering all her fears, all her pain, and letting them pour into the music. "You may try to drown us, but we know how to swim," she bellowed, the words crashing with fierce declaration. The shadows recoiled slightly, and for a moment, their grip loosened. It was a promise, they would fight. The glow intensified, bathing the stage in a warm hue that danced across the trembling hands and faces of those who believed in her. For every desolate note that echoed her struggles, another gleam of hope pulsed back, a defiance against despair. As she reached the climax of her song, the dark-eyed man faltered, his expression flickering with something unfamiliar, the recognition of fear. It only stoked her fire. "Can you hear it?" she shouted, her voice breaking through the cracks of their hesitation. "The sound of resilience. It's louder than your shadows." But just as victory began to feel like a reality, the man surged forward, his rage unfurling. "Enough. You've played your part, but this is where the real game begins." With a vicious thrust of his hand, the shadows erupted, swirling violently around her in a cacophony of howls and whispers. Amelia gasped, feeling the cold brush against her skin, an invasion of absolute dread. But her heart surged, thrumming with the pulse of the crowd, each beat echoing a unison of defiance. Fight! Logan's shout emerged from the chaos, a lifeline carved from emotion that tethered her to the crowd. Taking one last breath, she reached deeper, pulling from within the roots of her soul, pushing back against the shroud of darkness enveloping her, and just when Amelia thought she could ignite the light within, a piercing scream ripped through the air, fracturing the fragile tension. The crowd gasped as shadows fell away from her, revealing something unexpected. What had she unleashed? In the ebb and flow of light and dark, the balance tipped, and a new threat loomed. Something more than shadows beckoned from behind the chaos. The real game had just begun. With a roar, the shadows surged back, twisting into a phantasm of panic and fury. Amelia braced herself as the unknown threat made itself known. A figure emerged from the vortex of despair, a silhouette carved from darkness, looming larger than life. Eyes glinted darkly beneath a heavy brow, and a sinister smile cracked his face. He was not just a figure of shadows, he was a master of manipulation, drawing power from the chaos he incited. Amelia's heart pounded. She instinctively stepped closer to Logan, who stood vigilant by her side, his presence grounding her amidst the turmoil. "We need to stand together," he said, his eyes blazing with determination. "Your voice is a weapon, Amelia. Use it." Emboldened, she inhaled deeply, scattering the remnants of doubt that still clung to her. The whispers of fear swirled around her, but there was now something new, an ember of defiance blooming inside her. This was a battle they couldn't shy away from, a reckoning against the darkness that sought to consume not just her but everyone around them. "So," the dark figure crooned, his voice dripping with malice, "are you ready to lose everything you love for a song?" He advanced slowly, shadows coiling around him like serpents, and the crowd instinctively recoiled, sensing the danger. But Amelia stood firm. "I will never give in," she declared, her voice igniting like a spark in the night. With each note she unleashed, her conviction surged, weaving through the crowd like a warm tide, bolstering their courage. The air shifted, warm and alive, as they began to hum along, feeding off her determination. Logan watched, heart racing, as the light in her eyes sparked brighter. He felt it too, the rhythm of hope mingling with fear, a melody that crescendoed into something monumental. "That's right. Together!" he called out, rallying their fellow patrons as he joined in, his voice a fierce counterpoint to the shadows. Then something extraordinary happened. The crowd transformed, no longer just spectators, but participants wielding their fears and dreams as a catalyst. Joined, their voices filled the air, dancing with the melody. "We are stronger than all of this," they sang, creating a symphony of voices entwining in solidarity, each note pushing back against the oppressive darkness. Amelia's voice soared higher, no longer just a melody but a bolt of lightning piercing through the gloom. "You think you can scare us? We've faced our demons." The shadows writhing around the dark figure began to falter, recoiling from the warmth the crowd projected. There was something in the air now, an electric charge, a palpable energy born of their collective resolve. "You don't get it," the sinister figure shouted, but doubt crept into his voice. "This isn't over." The shadows pressed forward, but they were threading thin, flickering like a dying flame. Amelia's heart swelled, fueled by determination and the unwavering support of those around her. "It is over," she roared back, lifting her guitar, playing a fierce riff that shattered through the remnants of despair. Suddenly, the shadows convulsed, shrieking as if set alight. The dark figure staggered back, fear dawning on his features. "No!" he cried, a last attempt to maintain his hold as the blinding light of hope surged forward, consuming what he had wrought. With one final note, Amelia unleashed the essence of everything she had ever felt: the pain, the fear, the hope, the dreams. It was a sound that transcended reality, echoing into the very fabric of their fates. The crowd lifted their arms, embracing the crescendo of courage, adding their voices to the symphony that resonated with raw authenticity. The shadows shattered like glass, scattering into nothingness, evaporating as the dawn approached. Cheers erupted from the crowd, laughter blossomed amidst the debris of tension, as life surged through every vein once more. Logan pulled Amelia close, their embrace warm and full of unspoken understanding. "You did it," he murmured, pride flickering in his eyes. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a fear no longer holding them hostage. The crowd began to disperse, laughter and camaraderie spilling into the streets. People who had been fractured now stood whole once more, united in their shared experience. As they stepped outside into the gentle light of dawn, Amelia felt a newfound strength radiating through her. Maybe, she reflected, looking up at the blue sky, this is what it means to rise above. Logan glanced over, grinning. And perhaps there are brighter days ahead for both of us. In that moment, Amelia recognized the transformative power of courage, music, and community. Together, they had faced the shadows and come out the other side, not just survivors but warriors of their own story. With hope renewed, she knew they could face anything life threw their way, their fates forever intertwined in a powerful melody. Before they walked away, Amelia looked back at the coffee shop, the chaos of the previous night replaced by whispers of possibility and healing. Her heart swelled as she realized the impact they had made, the lives they had touched. And it's just the beginning, she breathed, staring ahead into a horizon filled with light, ready for whatever came next. Now, as you reach the end of this journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next incredible story that awaits you. Smash that like button, show your support, because it truly feeds the algorithm and helps us create more. Make sure to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to know what you think. And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let's keep this story alive.